Well, hello, long lost friends, strangers, Facebook. I don't know who we're talking to at this point. Hi,
Probably
Dave.
nobody. Hi,
How are you today?
I'm just peachy. I'm
Liar.
not often peachy, but today I'm peachy.
You always tell me I'm lying, so I'm telling you you're lying.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm a little
But we,
orangey. I don't
but
know.
we don't, we don't have time to get into all your feelings.
Okay, okay, good. Yeah, it's not a feelings talk.
No. So we're just gonna acknowledge it's been a little while since
Yeah.
you and I have recorded or posted anything, and maybe people don't care, and that's cool too. A lot has happened in our world, and we chose to take a pause for many, many reasons. One of them being to just lament and be aware of what is happening in our world. Uh, I guess there may be some people that don't know, but we do call the Minneapolis area our home, both Dave and I. Um, Dave, would you just talk a little bit about lament and the role it plays in your life, um, and why that's a significant part of why we paused?
Yeah, sure. Well, even before I get to that, I think I was in lament before I gave it a name. But when this whole thing blew up a week ago, 2 weeks ago,
I don't even know
whatever.
now.
When we started the conversation, Annika, between you and me, that resulted in these 2 a week things, it came in the context of the COVID environment, and you kind of came saying you have father energy, and you speak to me, and you're a father of many, and but people would really like to hear about things that don't move when everything's moving, and it was strange. I mean, I knew what to say. I okay, well, yeah, I will do that. And there are things that came and it seemed to grow. And when the city of Minneapolis was being burned down, and um, uh, the anger and the chaos and the screaming of voices from every direction, I had no idea what to say, and I lost whatever wise thing I can tell you, to navigate COVID. I didn't have it. I didn't have anything. So part of it was fatigue. And I think so. I remember. I think it was last week. I was reading the paper because I'm the one who does.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one in the Twin Cities who still gets an actual paper and reads it. It's like paper.
I think you're right.
That's why they call it a paper, even when it's online.
Oh.
I know. See, that's the etymology of that.
Mm.
See, you didn't know that. I'm like a
No.
dinosaur. When I was young, the Dead Sea was just had a bad cold. Anyway,
That's
really,
horrible.
that's
That's
really,
a horrible church joke.
it is a really bad joke. Stop show. No, I felt overwhelmed. I got sick to I felt the only thing I could describe to Bonnie was all I'm doing is reading the paper, and I feel like I'm being screamed at. All I feel are just, and one says that and one says that. And it was overwhelming. And I've got a son, your husband, who's a policeman, who's actually being screamed at, and hearing those voices. Um, and I'm not even saying those voices shouldn't be screaming. I'm just saying that's what's real. So the lament thing actually helps recenter me to, okay, what can I do? What can I do? I can, okay, I can react to that. I can react to that. Maybe I can just lament. And what lament helps me with is it helps lament. I like anger better. I do. Anger is much is preferable to me, because I have, when I'm angry, I have energy. I think I'm right, and I want to punch somebody. I don't punch anybody, but you know what I mean. I want to solve it, and I feel justified. And lament, to go to lament, all of that anger, it doesn't help at all. Just kind of goes away, and you just feel lament and sad. And what I know about myself, though, is that when I'm in lament, when I can get there, I can listen. I can hear. um, even shouting voices. I mean, when I'm not reacting, which I can do, but lamenting, I can hear a voice that's saying, and at one level, and maybe tomorrow I'll go, "What? You're an idiot."
We can delete this then.
Yeah, no, you can't, because they don't know what voice it was. Anyway, well, there's a lot of idiots yelling. But when I'm in that place of lament, it doesn't mean I think they're right, but I can hear it. And I think it's it should be a huge thing right now for people to be able, and maybe, I don't know if that's the key for anybody, but it is a thing that's helped me to listen, is to just say, to be consciously in that place of lament. Even saying this now is actually identifying, something that's good for me. Bonnie wishes I was there more often. Anyway,
that brings us to, picking up a little bit where we left off, which ironically is so fitting and continues to be a good place for us to draw wisdom from, which is a series that you did titled Way of the Rabbi, following this way. And couple of the questions that we've been addressing is, number one, how far are you willing to follow? Which is even more applicable and draws even more questions out now with the continuing events that are unfolding. And then last time we ended with this pattern of the multitudes following Jesus, and talking a little bit about some of the reasons why they kept pursuing him and kept following him for this free food. And the cheering crowds. We're talking about the cheering crowds. So will you jump back into this Way of the Rabbi, talking about listening, talking about the multitudes? I mean, we've gone all sorts of different places even before we started recording. How do we find the voice of the rabbi?
Well, let me back up that whole metaphor. I really like it. I mean, this helped me find my footing when we started. How do we get back in, if we're going to say anything at all ever again? But remembering where we were around the multitudes who were, and if anyone was with us in the last couple of segments, it was about the multitudes who were huge, and they were loud. They were screaming and give me more. And but it is fascinating, and I like to be able to bring things that that don't necessarily, like if you're on the right, oh, I'm for you, or you're on the left, oh, I'm for you. It would what is the place where we might hear a voice of wisdom, and you'll never hear it in a multitude. I mean, we said that a couple of weeks ago before this ever came up. It's not. I mean, the multitude was there for free food, and that we all when Jesus even confronted that, and then he said he didn't dumb it down. When they started to leave, he ramped it up and said that weird thing about, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood. And so they kept leaving. And so that was the question, how far are you willing to follow? And Jesus then turned to the disciples after everyone else had left, even disciples. And he said, what about you? And Peter said, where are we going to go? Only you have the words of life. And Jesus said, I'll start with you. So the whole idea there was he cared about the crowd. Mm-hmm. And he fed the crowd. He proclaimed to the crowd. He healed people. He ministered to the crowd, but he invested. He didn't invest there. He invested in the crowd. All those yelling voices, and he invests in there. I'm gonna listen to it. I'll feed it, but I'll do you. Who Peter? These ragamuffins who want to follow a different way. Couple of days, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, the big thing today is they want to dismantle the police department in Minneapolis, like undo it or defund it or whatever. And a group of people, multitude, had come to Mayor Fry's house. Mayor Fry is the mayor of Minneapolis. And he walked out to be with the crowd and not be intimidated, and tried to kind of say, hey, I'm with you or something like that. But they asked him point blank, are you gonna support defunding the police department? And he said, I'm absolutely for reform. And he went through his little mantra, I am absolutely for blah, 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 blah. I'm very upset about blah, blah, and he is. But I can't at this time, something like that. I can't support what you seem to be saying, to dismantle the entire police department. And immediately the crowd gave him a big hug, because that's what crowds do. No, crowd, they want their way. It's powerful voice, because everybody's saying the same thing. Oh, we're all right. I mean, it's like when you go to I remember going to a Viking, this is an easy way to look at it, but when you're at a Vikings game, we all have one voice. Everybody knows who the good guys are. Vikings. Everybody knows who the bad guys are. Packers, whatever. And the refs. And it's a great place to be. It feels great because we all know. You don't know nothing. The crowd knows nothing. There is no wisdom in the crowd. Crowds scream. And it doesn't mean they have a right to scream. I swear they do. And they're doing it happily, peacefully now. And maybe it is important to do those things to get attention, because if you've been silenced, I understand it. And when I get into my lament, I really understand.
Yeah.
But I keep listening for voices of wisdom that literally will feed the crowd, heal the crowd, metaphorically, feed them, minister to them, heal them, bless them, but not go, oh, what do you want me to think? I mean, if there's hope, and I think there's hope, and I think the voices are there, but the voices of wisdom don't usually scream. So we won't always hear them for at least a while, I don't think. But I think they're there. I just, I don't want to start endorsing people, but I think I can go out on a limb and say I trust Governor Walz. I hear wisdom in him. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, but I go, okay, he's holding what he can hold. There's other voices that I just go, he's playing to some crowd. Anyway, so I just think I already got waded in to more than I want to wade into. I mean, I can't believe I know. And Walz is a Democrat. Oh God. Anyway, if you don't like that, go listen to Greg Boyd's thing. He's
well, I mean, it's back to talking about listening to voices. I mean, we started off like lamenting and pausing yourself so you can actually for real hear, not just hear in your ears, but hear in your heart.
Yeah.
And hear in deeper places than just our auditory, and gather from places of wisdom, and then ultimately find our way back to the one voice that each of us are responsible to hear from.
Could I give you an example of a wise voice I heard last week? I have a really good friend, Doug Glenn, who's a pastor, and he's an old Open Door guy, but he's a pastor now in Phoenix, and he's in the Covenant. And he texted me last week and said, "Dude," because that's what he calls me, "Dude." Ephraim Smith is going to be doing a webinar. And he's in the Covenant now, and so for the Covenant, and a bunch of Covenant pastors are going to be on it, and I can send you a link and you can sneak in. So I got the link and I was able to kind of sit in the back row. I don't know how you do that on a Zoom call, but I was able to watch this thing of Ephraim Smith. And for those who don't know Ephraim's an African-American pastor from Minneapolis. Open Door, knows him really well. He's been at Open Door several times. I consider him a really good friend, though I haven't seen him for a long time because he moved to California. But he just spoke with clarity and from a African-American's perspective of living in Minneapolis and noticing things that were inequitable and things like that. So he didn't soften anything. but he wasn't an angry guy. But the thing that he said that I'll never forget, and it shifted me. And this is where I just think this is where wise voices can do this. And it was a biblical story. But he talked about the story of Jesus going to the woman, the Samaritan woman who he met at the well. And she was Samaritan, first of all. She was a woman, second of all. And if you remember the story, she was that woman of whom Jesus said, truly, you are not married, for you have had 5 husbands, and the man you are with now, you're not even married to. And, back in the day, that was the, she was the model of the loose woman who's using this man and trying to get life from things that can't give it. And I remember years ago on dismantling that baloney, because it was really clear that in that culture, if she was a Samaritan woman who had 5 husbands, it wasn't even lawful for her to divorce. She had been discarded 5 times. Without a doubt, she had been discarded 5 times by 5 different women. And because that was the system. And so, and that's, I already knew that part, but what Stefan did to connect some dots was, he said, and that's an example of systemic sin, because the system in Israel, or in what was not favorable to Samaritan women. If you were a Samaritan woman, there was not a system that would protect you, that cared about you. You could be discarded without any protection at all from the system. And I know it's true. Like, women could be divorced by their husbands for pretty much any reason at all. If I didn't like your dress, if you burned the bagels, I mean, that's a little crazy, but you could be discarded. And so you're walking on tiptoes all the time. But you're dead in that culture too. Physically, you will die without the protection of the patriarch. And so that's what Stephan then said was, but Jesus sat there and drank at her well. Okay. And then he said something to the effect, if there's anything I could ask, it would be that the white church would drink at the well of the black church and the black community, and just recognize that there are some systemic things that have not protected certain members of our community, in the black community, and for us to just, could you drink it that well? Could you? Which means to me, it meant listening to Ephraim. It meant it's like, listen, and I'm just saying, when he said that, I'm going, I'm in. Now, I don't always know who to listen to, because all of a sudden everybody, white and black, screaming. In the center, when we talk about silence and solitude, and this could sound like go stick your head in a hole, but and ignore everything. But there's just this confusion of voices, not just now, always. In the church, there's a confusion of voices. You should think this, you should think that. This is the most important thing. No, it's not, it's that. So how do you navigate this very noisy world with a confusion of voices? Someplace you got to turn down the volume. Take out the earpods. Don't, I can't remember his, can't remember his name now. It'll come to me.
Well, it reminds me of Ruth Haley Barton's visual about what our soul is like. It's like a jar of river water, all shook up, and oh God, if my life doesn't feel like that right now, I don't know what does. But in order for us to start hearing, in order for things in our soul to start bubbling up, you have to set that jar down and let it all settle, right?
It takes time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not an excuse to not be activated, to not do something if that is what you are to do. But before, you and I were talking about, we're all going to be called to different things at the well. Some of us are going to be serving water. Some of us are going to be in the background pushing people who can't see forward. Some of us are going to be bringing food. I mean, there are so many different ways to...
I'll be throwing people into the well who I don't like.
We know. That's that anger part that we started out with. Just don't throw me in, okay?
Okay. No.
So.
Well, I think it's amazing. I hope we haven't confused everybody or inflamed too many people. But I think, ironically, I mean, wasn't sure I wanted to do this because it's the only thing I had to say. This thing of maybe even it helps that we can acknowledge if you're exhausted, it's because you should be. I mean, we're being screamed at, and I'm not picking a side when I say that. I'm
right.
Every side, white, black, police, protesters. You just hear it, and there's this other thing that's emerged, and it's always been there, but now it's accentuated. If I say the wrong thing, so on one hand, people screaming. On the other hand, people not saying anything. Because if I ask a question and it's the wrong question, oh, you're a blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really healthy. That's really helpful. That's going to really promote conversation. Don't listen to that voice either.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just telling you. I mean, it would be good to even be, if God could help us be objective. Because way over here on the right, let's just whoever is there on the right, Donald Trump, right over there. The first time I've told everybody, I think he's an idiot. I ain't listening to that voice. I'm not listening to that voice. But way over here on the left, I'm not. There's no wisdom there, and there was no wisdom there. So where are you going to find it? And I don't think it's in either one of those places, and maybe quit trying to find it in either one of those places. And like if we could fix that, or we could fix that, find your center, and it better be in God. And God bless both those extremes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep. I think one of the things that I'm trying to practice and learning how to do as I get ramped up and then let things settle and get ramped up and let things settle. It's like a roller coaster sometimes, moment by moment. It's just to realize that, number one, I am encountering throughout my day human beings who are all on their own journey and who are all encountering the things that are happening in our lives in different ways. And I'm encountering them not as a finished project.
No,
that's
really?
not the end of the story. Wherever I'm encountering them, you're encountering me and I'm encountering you. Like, that's not the end of our story. So the things that we're sharing with each other are all a part of where God is bringing us. And hopefully, if we are Jesus followers, that is to more and more integration, more and more following his ways. And so when I can encounter people in my life like that, I just have so much more grace for them.
Yep.
So much more kindness. I also have lots of moment of unkindness too, but that's all part of it. That's all part of it.
Yep. I agree.
And learning what that I am being called to, and doing that.
It's really good, Annika.
I don't know what episode this is. I think I was supposed to say that at the beginning.
It's episode Van Hugel. It's the next one.
So we think we'll continue to pick back up some more Way of the Rabbi as the weeks unfold. So be kind to us. Be kind to each other. And thanks for joining us. Any closing remarks, Dave? Also, I mean, no one commented, but we planned our outfits like this.
Oh, I didn't notice that till just now. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't put your ponytail in, but.
My ponytail?
Yeah.
I get a haircut. Oh, your ponytail. Yeah. Yeah, if there was a last word, it would be that I think the sweet spot of this talk is try to find the place of lament, and not to let it shut you down, but to let it, to let it help me listen. Because I don't listen well when I'm in, I just think that would be an interesting. We talked a lot about discipline, spiritual practices that help
Right.
turn down the volume, like silence and solitude. I just think that in this season, a way to turn down the volume is to press into lament. And I think we're onto something there. I
Yeah.
didn't expect that when we started this talk, but
No, we actually thought we'd go somewhere else, but
yep.
that would be the first time that happened. So
Right.
Yeah.
It's the Lord.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Do what you do. Send us a comment if you'd like.
Yep.
Or don't. But have a great day. We'll talk again soon. Bye, Dave.
Bye-bye.